which now
Okay.
puts us in the overtime. It's just that
Okay.
simple, post-production. So,
Amazing.
you know what? The modern computer is a miracle. How you mentioned that one of your services that could actually take things off is even just translating stuff into Mandarin. Is that because there's just so much demand in Asia? When you say the institutionals are coming in, like, what is the breakdown now of where people are coming from in the crypto space?
Yeah, I mean, China, Korea, Japan, they're always kind of have been a major player in crypto. So like when we work with this consulting firm, so they'll do, yeah, like I said, they'll translate documents in Mandarin because apparently it's really difficult to translate documents like correctly and like to maintain the still like the same like tone of voice and all that stuff through translation if you're not like an extremely like fluent person. So we have a team in China that will do that. And then like they'll do road shows in China. They have connections to Chinese exchanges that could get projects listed probably faster than they would otherwise be. So pretty much we just work with this consulting firm for kind of that market to really broaden the kind of the viewpoint of the token for that market. But we also use that kind of our connections in China to really get kind of their point of view on the crypto market as a whole, the crypto market within Asia, because I mean there definitely is a little bit of a difference between kind of the Asian crypto market and the American crypto market, just kind of based off of like what they value, what they are focused on. So it's good that we kind of have that same we have people kind of boots on the ground to be able to really like look into that market and give us kind of insights into the market that we're not like actively pursuing.
So what does that mean, saying that there's different things they value? I mean, is it there's different qualities that generate the coin? I mean, what makes like a coin that could succeed in China versus one that would succeed here? I mean, are there general differences or trends as to what they're looking for versus us, or what?
I mean, a lot of like there are some features of coins that like kind of different markets find more appealing. Like there's kind of privacy, like stable coins, all that. So there are some features, but then it's a lot of it is just coming down to like a lot of Asians really do kind of follow and have more like allegiance to coins that have come out of China that have been have like Chinese founders, Chinese teams. And so I think there's a little disconnect there between the two markets and how they kind of interact.
When you're launching a coin that actually does well, right? Like the next sort of Bitcoin or Ethereum or something else. Like,
Yeah.
what is the cost of launching a coin into a meaningful position?
I mean, it all really depends on kind of what everything that encompasses what they're going after, the market they're going after. Because I mean, a lot of it is that it's not like you really have a product. A lot of it is kind of just the code behind everything. But so most of the cost is just around like engineering salaries and stuff like that. But there is something to be said about the crypto community and how they really latch onto projects. And so some of these tokens, like there's one called Chainlink right now that I have really like no clue like what it really does and like what it like who its clients are, like who its users are or anything like that. But it's gone up like a few 100% in the last like month or two, just because it has like a fan base, this unbelievably loyal fan base who they're going on like they're making TikTok videos about it. They're like all on social media about it, like telling everybody to buy it. And like, it won't stop going up. And sometimes it's amazing to see. Like there's another token called Dogecoin, which literally this guy pretty much copied Bitcoin's code and made it as a joke of a coin. Like he just put a dog's face as its mascot kind of. And it's also been going up like massively in the past few months because some like TikTok bro started telling everybody like, if this is at 4 cents. If everybody buys this, like we could get it up to Bitcoin's level and then we're all rich. And it's just like, I mean, classic pump and dump scheme, but it's just amazing how like communities around these coins can sometimes prop it up to kind of help it survive. Because I mean, a lot of founders, they also will take a cut of the tokens. And so, I mean, if these communities will help kind of inflate the prices of of these tokens, then that helps the team generate a little bit of cash.
Is there? My understanding is the SEC over here has now listed them as an actual asset. So would that make pump and dumping schemes illegal, or are those things still? Is it still Wild West in that regard?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, the SEC they haven't actually come out with like anything formal about regulation on crypto. They've kind of made it known that there's what's called a Howey test, which is to determine whether a token or a crypto asset is a security or a utility token. So a security that it's helping kind of provide value, or it's giving you value for holding that token that is like any other security like Apple or Tesla or anything like that. A utility token is really that its sole use is to provide utility for that network. So like there's a coin called Filecoin, its coin, you can use that coin to purchase like data space, like space on like a hard drive, like that's like a decentralized hard drive that you can store files on kind of this decentralized hard drive. And so you kind of use that coin to pay for services. So they're called a utility token. They still can increase in value, but its main purpose is to be a utility for that network. And so the SEC has kind of said that utility tokens, if they pass that, like this Howey test, they're fine from being regulated on how they raise their money. But the tokens that are securities and that they have deemed securities that don't pass that Howey test, they need to be regulated under the SEC. So they've started kind of coming out with, like, I think it was Telegram came out with, had an ICO. It was like a $2 billion fundraise for their token. The SEC pretty much said, you guys did that illegally. You guys were clearly doing this for security. You have to pay back everybody. And so they're in the process of appealing it probably right now. But yeah.
How big was that raise? Like when they were raising it, like what amount of money were they talking about there?
I mean, this was like right at the height of kind of the 2017 bull run, where like if you just, I could have sold any type of token saying it was an ICO, and I probably could have raised a few $1 million. But they raised, I think, $2 billion. Like EOS was another one. They raised $4 billion. Like it's just like amazing, like how much money was kind of thrown into this, because a lot of people saw kind of how much all of these tokens were increasing in price and how quickly they were increasing in price, that they just had massive FOMO. Like, I need to get a piece of these. And most of the ICOs, if you got in an ICO, you usually got in at like a pretty low price before they came out to the public. So it's similar to an IPO. Like, you're getting in it at kind of a reduced price. Some of them even did, like, if you if you bought X amount, you got like a 20% discount or something like that on the price. Or if you were within this first group of purchasers, you got a discount. So like people were getting in at a pretty low price, and then they just wait until the price increased and then got out, or they held being greedy, thinking that it was going to go up even more, and now they're holding on to something worthless.
I mean, less worthless than a Heimer coin, obviously.
I mean, you never know. I mean, I may be interested in buying some. So,
I mean, it sounds like we just need to get some documents in Chinese, and we're gonna be good to go.
I mean, or get a TikTok bro to kind of just push it on that platform. They're going crazy right now for some of these extremely cheap Bitcoin alternatives.
Is TikTok a real marketing channel for this stuff? Or, I mean,
I mean, Dogecoin was the first one that I saw but I mean, it started with like one kid. Just I don't know how old he is, probably between like 18 and 22 or something like that. But he just was like, hey, like it's at like less than 4 cents. If we can get it, like if you buy, I think he said something like if you put in $25 and then we push this and if everybody keeps on buying, we can push this thing up to $1, and then we've made like $10,000 or whatever it was. And like all these kids were like, oh my God. So they started making TikToks about Dogecoin, and like other people started making and then it literally has taken off. It's amazing. And it literally like the founder of Dogecoin said that it was like, he made a meme coin off of Bitcoin. Like it is a complete joke. There is nothing to it, but I mean, now he's like pretty rich because it just continues to go up, and he probably holds the majority of the tokens.
I think though, if he made it under that context, he probably would have sold it already,
Maybe,
at least sold enough to like.
I mean, you're probably holding on to a few Heimer coins, so like maybe.
Yeah,
maybe that's.
I'm definitely not breaking the Heimer, that's for sure. But how do you tell in that space, like which ones are sort of tulips and which ones have potential? I mean, is it a function of volume? Is it a function of, do you dig into things like, if you say, okay, this is really just down to a TikTok bro, I'm not interested in this, or how do you go and evaluate these ones that are like bubble or borderline?
I mean, a lot of times we'll look at it similar to how you look at an equity offering. So like we'll look at what the team is, who's comprised of the team, what they've done previously, look at kind of the market, see what other tokens are out there. Are there any competitors out there? Like also some of kind of the features of some of these tokens could always be just implemented in other tokens. So like some of these privacy tokens, like there's a worry that like if one of their privacy features is so important to that token and is requested by a lot of the kind of crypto community as a whole, like Bitcoin could technically just throw that into their code and say, okay, like we made an upgrade, now Bitcoin is a privacy token, and then it like, because it is Bitcoin and it's the number one crypto token, like all the other privacy tokens would just be like, oh, we're screwed. Like they probably have their like core followers still holding on for hope that it'll succeed, but kind of everybody else who's speculating would just be like, we're just going to go to Bitcoin. So I mean, we definitely look at that. We'll look at like the code, like code audits. We'll see like, is the code actually up to speed? Have they even like done anything with like on their roadmap? Like a lot of these tokens that did the ICO, it was all like, oh, our roadmap looks like this. Like here we are a year later, they hadn't done a single thing on the roadmap, and now you're like, were you guys ever going to do anything? So like it's definitely like looking at kind of what have they shipped, and in terms of kind of what they were saying they were going to, and then looking at kind of who their kind of core users are. Are they TikTok bros, or are they actually like people deep within kind of the crypto or tech community? And so we kind of lean towards kind of the tech community rather than the tech bros and TikTok bros.
So if they're deep in the community, so the idea is that there's going to be some other application or service or something else. This will be integrated into that other type of offering, that would ensure there is a value that's there that essentially stabilizes demand. Is that part of the thinking there, or is it always just the coin and the operations of the coin itself?
I mean, I think we look at kind of the coin itself and just really kind of, is there a market for that within the community, or like it, yeah, like is there some use case for that, for what that token provides? So like Bitcoin, and so, there are a handful of other kind of competitors that are focused on kind of the money aspect or a store of value, and trying to kind of compete with gold or anything like that. But then there are others that are looking for storage, like the Filecoin one I was talking about, or Ethereum is trying to work on smart contracts and kind of be the place for smart contracts. And Ethereum has a ton of competitors in that space too. So it's really just looking at, do those networks have a market, and then is their solution kind of primed to kind of be kind of that token to either come out on top or kind of be one of those ones that kind of are competing? Because I mean, we certainly will look at returns on short term and long term, when we're investing. So we'll kind of make plays that maybe we'll look at one that's not going to be a winner long term. Like Ethereum may be the one that takes over long term, but then this one may have a little niche that could kind of provide something until Ethereum puts in their code that kind of that feature. So
So in a lot of ways, it's a lot like the general venture model in general, right? Is there a market that's big enough? Are these guys not completely crazy? And
yeah, like I kind of think of it like, you look at the team, you look at the market, and you look at their moat and see like kind of what their moat is, and do they have kind of a space in the ecosystem? And I mean, a lot of the tokens don't have a space, and I think we're kind of, since we had that massive bull run and the massive bear run, we're starting to kind of weed out which ones are the good guys and which ones are just faking it, and trying to rid them from the crypto space.
so where do you see like things like the national debt that you want to change and items like that? I mean, where do you see crypto in the whole scheme of things in general? I mean, do you still see it? I mean, when you talk about it's like a TikTok video that's hyping something, it's almost like you'd never see a TikTok video as saying, "Oh man, the Icelandic, whatever they have." I guess I don't know what Iceland does. The British pound is freaking nuts. You should go out and buy pounds, right? Like, although pound,
Very
I
true.
could actually see that could be a good TikTok video. Go out and buy
I
a
think
pound
that could.
today.
I think that could be. I think we're onto something there.
I just need to find some more broy guys who are bored and like then figure out how to buy a bunch of pounds, I guess. But where do you see it fitting in to the general space in, like, as far as impacting national debts and affecting true currency? I mean, what do you see it's like? What do you see, and how big do you see its role is down?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think, and I may differ from some people in the crypto community, but I don't think Bitcoin would be something that could just replace the dollar completely. But I do think what Bitcoin's doing, and kind of what the Fed has been doing recently, is opening up people's eyes to the fact that you personally have zero control over the value of the dollar or your money or anything like that. So like, Bitcoin's opened people's eyes to, there are alternatives to keeping your money in traditional banking institutions, and allowing people to kind of have a little more freedom. And that's just in the United States. In other countries like Venezuela, where they've had massive hyperinflation, where you were able to buy a house one like last year, and now that same they're on the like Bolivar or something like that, the same amount of Bolivar can barely buy a cup of coffee just because of how ridiculous inflation has been. Though people in Venezuela have been looking at Bitcoin as a way to have just store value and kind of get away from their currency. So I do think that there will be some countries, probably a lot smaller countries, probably some third world countries, that will switch over to a digital currency, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's a stable coin, whether it's they just make their own stable coin, whatever it may be. I think some countries will go over and kind of go away from whatever their current denomination is. I don't see the United States doing that. I could see them creating a digital dollar and putting just the current dollar on a blockchain to allow them, because I mean their whole thing about Bitcoin is that, oh, it's only used for illicit activity, where I mean, if I'm going to be like, if I'm a drug dealer or like anybody, like I'm using dollar bills to transact in my illegal activity rather than using Bitcoin or anything like that. So so them moving over to a digital dollar would certainly be able to help them track their dollars more. It would certainly help in paying taxes and all that, and even helping send out stimulus checks. I mean, if everything was digital, you would have gotten your stimulus check within 20 minutes of them making that announcement. So like, I think that's where the United States will go. I mean, China's already really looking into a digital yen or whatever they have. Yen?
I think it's the yen, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, no, is that right? Isn't Japan the yen? This is a good question. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to Google. We're gonna have to open a Google session on this one.
But yeah, China's already looking to kind of make those first steps into doing that. So I think that's where kind of larger developed countries will go. There may be one or two that decide to go kind of more on the Bitcoin side and be a little rebel, but I think that's where it's going to go. And I could see Bitcoin kind of taking over maybe a subsector or taking kind of a larger place in people's kind of overall holdings. But I certainly don't think that at least in our lifetime that Bitcoin is going to become kind of the world currency.
I mean, I was doing something the other day. I mean, there's like a super majority of Bitcoin hash rates are coming from just one region of the world, right? I mean, you sort of have essentially a regional domination we're never supposed to be able to have in that currency as a function of inequitable resources. I mean, is that able to ever go away just given the design of the coin? I mean, is there, just as a quick definitional check, so a stable coin, you're identifying a stable coin as it's pegged to some other fiat currency in some way, or some of the basket of fiat currencies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a few different stable coins. There's stable coins that are backed by fiat. So like there's like USDC, which is pretty much backed solely off of US dollar. There's like Tether is the same way, just US dollar. There are others that are backed by a basket of kind of currencies or bonds or anything like that. Then there are other stable coins that are backed by like algorithmic like processes where they'll inflate or deflate the dollar based on kind of how much inflow or outflow of kind of trading that's happening on that stable coin. There's other ones that have a cryptocurrency that it's backed by, and so that cryptocurrency will kind of have fluctuation based off of the kind of the supply and demand of that token to kind of help set that peg 1-to-1. So there's more than just stable coins that are backed by fiat, but fiat is probably the most common one, at least right now.
So theoretically, you could have an M31 coin that is backed by your portfolio of what's there. Then is that how those sort of layers work on?
I mean, we definitely could. I mean, so that would probably get more into like a security token because that's looking straight because like it'll rise or decrease based on the value of our portfolio. So that would be more of kind of tokenizing our fund
Mhm.
and kind of making it an asset. Which there are some funds have done that where they'll tokenize the fund, and so like it's super easy for an LP of that fund. If you no longer want to be a part of that fund, you can just sell off your shares in the secondary market, and then that fund gets a new LP. Um, so there's definitely ways to do that, but that's more on kind of like a security token per se. But
I always find it sort of funny with some of these other. It seems a lot of the crypto market has a lot of libertarian leanings in the people who are in it, right? Yet it seems
definitely,
like a lot of the benefits associated with it is essentially border-free money transfer and border-free wealth. Like I remember when the Argentinians were having trouble. I don't know, they're one of their eighth trouble back or something. I know they're in a crisis every 3 months, but in one of them, in like Venezuela, you had a ton of money dumping into Bitcoin or other coins for the purpose of that being it's stable external to your local situation.
yep,
It seems ironic that the libertarians are actually wanting what will become essentially one world dominating currency. Isn't that sort of odd?
yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely think so, and I definitely don't think that we'll have kind of that one dominating currency. I mean, Bitcoin's, I mean, its dominance is at like almost 70% of the market right now. So I mean, there definitely makes it seem like there is one, but I'm certainly Bitcoin. It's possible Bitcoin isn't going to be the one. Like there may be one that comes later than Bitcoin that is going to be even better, and that's going to be the one that kind of takes over. Um, but yeah, I definitely I see your point, and I definitely think it is interesting. But
I don't want
we're
any of
not
your
perfect.
partners
We're not
mad.
perfect. We're
Is
not
that
perfect. We're not perfect.
well? I know. I'm not trying to goad you into a fight with any partner. I mean that would definitely be something up my alley versus yours. But yeah, which which speaking of unnecessary fights, so the venture world in general. I mean, because I know has being on the other side. So you and I we met in as venture apprentices, so to speak, within was really sort of start a venture fund. Um, now that you've really sort of been on both sides of the table multiple times, and what's your thoughts on it? Because I mean, in some ways, you were, well, I guess currently you're sort of on both sides already, right? You're both having to raise the money and assess who is there. What's your take on it in general? I mean, there's some interesting little weird pieces like nearly every team seems to need someone from Wharton associated with some perspective,
Yeah,
which
I mean,
indicates
I mean, I mean, I definitely fundraising definitely sucks. I don't think anybody says otherwise. Um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting going from the person providing the money to then the person needing the money, and just like seeing kind of the power distribution of like both sides of things. I definitely have a lot more empathy for the people that have just been grinding over and over again, trying to kind of raise money. Um, and and yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting that like so M31, it started with our founder Nathan, who kind of has been running a kind of a crypto fund almost as a hobby, which is kind of friends and family for a while now, and kind of just started to make this legitimate. But he brought in a partner from who was the former COO of one of Bridgewater Associates, one of their verticals, and Bridgewater is the biggest hedge fund in the world. So I mean, I think he's definitely kind of brought that legitimacy to kind of our crypto project. Whereas I think if it was just me and Nathan going out, we'd probably have a good amount of doors slammed in our faces, but with Michael on board, we have a lot of, because he's coming on as COO, and so he kind of has that risk management background from traditional finance that a lot of these more traditional funds of funds or family offices kind of see as a pretty big positive for us. So it's definitely been interesting kind of going out on kind of that path, and it's been super fun kind of building it from the ground up and kind of seeing everything that goes into launching a fund and fundraising and doing fundraising while you're also trying to make investments and just juggling everything and having such a small team. So I mean, it's definitely different, but definitely still fun.
How is it in the COVID land of everything being virtual? Does the in-person meeting in something like this matter as much? I mean, when you are starting to actually now have numbers, I mean, I guess you have what, 90 or 120 days of numbers now of how you're doing. Is there still that same reliance on, you know what, these guys are okay, I need to actually see them face to face? How is that? Has there been a big change there in the fundraising world?
I mean, I definitely think that it's hurt us, because I mean, we've heard from a lot of people, they love what we're doing, but because of COVID and everything, they're focusing on their current portfolio companies and seeing our current portfolio funds to kind of help them if they need it and kind of save funds for that. So I definitely think it has probably hurt us. I mean, we're a decentralized team. I'm in San Francisco, Nathan's in New York, Michael's in Connecticut. So like, we've been decentralized this whole time. And like, we've been on Zoom calls even before the COVID started. So I think in that sense, it doesn't hurt us that much, because like we'd be doing this no matter what anyway. So like, if there was a call that with a potential LP that Nathan and I both had to jump on, or like Michael and I both had to jump on, like one of us could be kind of face to face, but like, we can't have the entire team face to face anyway, unless we're flying all the way out there. So I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword, just kind of seeing how kind of companies or funds are really able to kind of skirt that line of needing to kind of have that face to face, but then like not being able to.
Speaking of doubling down on current portfolio, I saw an interesting article the other day on Elon Musk's debt burden. And I know this is one of my favorite white whales, but I was reading this the other day. This guy is at $585 million in personal debt. He has an 8% annual growth rate in debt, but all of his debt is backed off his stock value. So he's not even selling anything. He's basically going to the bank and they're actually giving him increases in his debt based off of the share price of Tesla.
As long as Tesla keeps rolling, he's going to be just fine.
As long as it keeps rolling, but they've only hit one production target ever, and they're still making engineering decisions on whim. I mean, it's going to be a DeLorean.
He certainly is walking a thin line right now. But I mean, I saw some article that that analysts for I forget the firm, but they like up their Tesla's price target to like $3,250 or something like that, and they were saying that like that sooner or later, like Tesla's going to be pretty close to being included in the S&P 500, and then all that means is that you have all of those index funds, those S&P 500 index funds, having to buy up Tesla. So like, I mean, I could see it keep on going up amazingly, but I mean, sooner or later it will have to come back down to earth a little bit, but
won't it someday have to produce cars? I mean, like the car production rate relative to Ford or GM, which is theoretically bigger than, we can always argue, okay, fine. It's a more interesting car. I mean, like, if I'm just building a factory of artwork. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to make walls, right? And then we can argue, well, it's a battery company. Is the volume of its batteries really, and is the technology of its batteries really that much better to justify multiples and multiples upon these companies that are there? And at the end, if you really don't have that stuff, don't you just sort of have, again, another crypto play that is sort of loosely based on some sort of an asset that is completely overvalued and now gets into the S&P 500? That would be absolutely nuts. And that would,
Oh,
honestly, that would be freaking mind-blowing if he's able actually to play that thing out. But
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's amazing that like he's been able to do this. I mean, and the fact that he's running Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, if that even is a thing, the Boring Company, like he has so much going on. But I mean, yeah, I mean, sooner or later he will have to produce cars. I mean, I think he just announced today that they're building a new gigafactory in Berlin or something like that. But yeah, he will certainly have to actually make cars to justify that price.
I don't know. At this point, though, isn't it part of that other theme of, like, this was the Big Short problem, right? Where you just need a bigger fool, right? I mean, if someone keeps upping that price, we keep upping it, does there become a certain point where it's now, I mean, you do hit S&P 500. Now are you so locked in, you just end up with this completely inflated thing that doesn't actually produce anything but shiny objects every week? I mean, you sort of just have like a dream sitting there. Like
Yeah,
it's a dream factory, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it certainly will be interesting to see what he does with it. But yeah, I mean, I have a few friends who put in the deposit for the Cybertruck, so they're at least helping me prop. I mean, I think what Tesla did that was amazing was they convinced so many people to give them interest-free loans by doing their like $2,000 deposit on a car, and it's refundable whenever you want. But like, I mean, amazing interest-free loan right there for Tesla.
It's such an interesting reflection of all what seems like to me our whole venture world, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
it makes no sense. Some of the people believe it makes no sense. But what's also intriguing is this was a heated discussion I once had in Chicago, where, what on earth is venture, right? And you have the one side that says that venture is just complete gambling, like maybe you'll get a 50x, right? But even ones that, like with Sky Fernandez, right, and Beyond Meat, even then they're still only at a 7, and that's like just killed it, right? He
Yeah,
got him with a 7x, right? I mean, these 50s are just completely not possible, but like just they aren't happening, right? You are
yeah,
gambling on this thing. Our industry median's a 1.6 multiplier. 58% never even returns, your principal, right?
yeah,
And yet we have a lot of government policy that seems to indicate, based around our dreamscape, we should be expanding venture's footprint within what we depend on as an economy from this 1 to 2% state, which
yeah,
at 1 to 2%, sure, you can gamble. I mean, hell, we're gambling on sending kids back to school at the 1% rate, right? I mean, it's only 80,000 kids. I mean, just as long as it's not yours, it's not a big deal. So, I mean, who needs all of them? I mean, apparently if Musk is right, we're in a simulation and the machine's just eating him anyway. So, but if it's gambling and we're 1%, fine. But if we're going to try and expand that venture piece, it seems like we need to get our hands around this gambling. It seems like we probably need to be making our projections off of real value driven choices.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we have an oversaturation of venture funds out there, especially on the seed stage. Because I mean, I think everybody's romanticized the idea of being one of the first people to invest in the next Uber, and like having just those like, I remember seeing there was some like Excel spreadsheet that after Uber went public, of like all of their like angel investors and how much money they put in and what their value was at the IPO price. And it's just like, yeah, they put in $50,000 and now they're like, they have like 50 million or whatever it was. So I think a lot of people are seeing just these. I think we also have massive evaluation problem in kind of private companies right now. So everything's being overvalued. So then everyone looks like they're doing so great on paper, but then they go to IPO, and like Airbnb is a great example. Like everybody thought Airbnb was the greatest thing ever, and COVID happens, and they've had to kind of like totally revamp what they do and focus more on local travel than anything else. And I think their valuation is taking a hit because they were planning on going public at the end of this year, and now they certainly aren't doing that now because their valuation has taken probably such a hit that that their investors are probably freaking out. So I definitely think that that there needs to be probably a little consolidation or weeding out of these venture funds. Because I mean, at one side, like, yes, it is gambling, but on the other side, like, there are funds that are doing really well and have been doing really well for that line. Are they just that good at gambling, or do they actually like know how to value and pick out better opportunities in the startup space?
Well, or are they able to market better, and because they had an initial position, because the actual look and feel of the industry is so narrow, because everyone has a Wharton person or a Harvard person or this person, you say, oh, you got to have this person. At the seed stage, almost nothing is sustainable after seed stage if you're going venture. Uber Eats is still shareholders are still subsidizing $2 a meal on Uber Eats, right? And we're finally public now, right?
Yeah.
So is it not in some ways those ones who are like an Andreessen Horowitz, because you're like, oh, Andreessen was in first, you're always going to make money just because it's essentially a better marketing play, like Y Combinator, right? Like Y Combinator.
Y Combinator is like the prime example. Like the fact that like Y Combinator had a lot of hits early on that now valuations are so inflated just by the fact that you went to Y Combinator. It's pretty amazing. But I mean, I personally don't know what we have to do to change that. But I definitely think it's an issue.
Is there another way to even do it? Right? I mean, is crowdsourcing something that could even be able to do that? Right? Because I mean, if you're a young firm, it seems like you have one option. Your fundraising is destined to land on, do you have the right TikTok bro? Or the other side is your destiny set by Andreessen Horowitz? Is like, yeah, I could resell that.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's less on TikTok bros.
Until Mark Andreessen starts doing TikTok videos, and then you've got a whole merging.
I would love to see Andreessen and Horowitz do a TikTok video. I mean, Horowitz is big in the rap game. Like maybe you could bring on a few of his rap colleagues and throw out a new viral video.
Or maybe, they could do the duet feature to one of his songs. So
perfect.
I think Horowitz duetting one of Horowitz's songs.
That'd be amazing to see. I think we need to pitch that to them.
I just want to make sure we don't undervalue this before we go.
Very true.
Just real high valuation.
I think that'd be perfect. But I think they'll take it. I think they'll take a look for sure.
Well, I'm going to build some Heimer coins into it, and that way this whole society is going to be fixed.
Yeah, it'll take off for sure.
Corey, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was a fun time.